So I got a lot of comments on the video I made about the oil leak and fixing the never-ending oil leak. Let me just review this real quick. So the vehicle came in with an oil leak. It looked like it was leaking from the oil pan. It was resealed, just like anybody would have done. Would you have read directions? Probably not. You bolt it up, it's really nothing to it. So pull it down, you could see that for whatever reason it's leaking. You put new silicone sealer on it, clean it all up, put it together, away you go. It leaked again. Okay. Next step, because it's a plastic pan, you would think, okay, it's probably something with the pan. Let's replace the pan, because many plastic components on engines, they tell you, are one-time use only. Not all, but many of them are. So replace the pan, reseal it. Okay. Comes back again with an oil leak from the pan. All right, is it possible we messed up and put the sealer on wrong? Sure. So let's take it apart. Let's clean it all up. Let's absolutely double check that we put the sealer on correctly, reseal it, put it together. Leaks again. Okay, something's obviously not right here. But still, I guarantee you, nobody would have looked at the directions on how to do this. I know most people wouldn't. I know I probably wouldn't. Next step would be, let's look at bulletins or let's look up common failure points for these things and see what's going on. If you do that, if you look up heavy oil leak on one of those things, you will find that there is several cases, many cases actually, of the PCV system causing too much internal engine vacuum. Now, on that vehicle, if you went to go take the oil cap off, it would stall the engine. If you went to go pull up on it after you unscrewed it, it would want to suck the cap back in place. That seems like way too much internal vacuum if you ask me. But there's no test for it. There's no way to figure it out. So they put a new valve cover on it because that's a common failure. They put a new valve cover on it with a vent hose because that's a common failure causing oil pan gasket leaks. Okay? They did all that, resealed the pan again, same thing. So at that point, they were like, what is going on here? And that's when I really looked into it. And I was like, let me read the directions on what you have to do. And sure enough, that's when I found that you had to use that adhesion promoter. Okay? That's the first time I've ever seen having to use adhesion promoter on a plastic component when sealing with silicone. It's the first time I've ever seen it. Is it there for other things? Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I've never seen it personally. So is it the fault of the shop? Technically, yes, it is. Is it the fault of the technician? Technically, yes. But I wouldn't hold anybody at fault for it. Me personally, if I was the owner of the shop or anything like that, I wouldn't personally hold anybody at fault for that. Because in all honesty, something like that, why would you bother to read the directions? It's a simple, straightforward, unbolt it, clean it, seal it, put it back together. Why would you think there's anything special in the directions? Especially since something like that was never done before. And you would think also, when you find that oil pan leaking scenario, like when you look up bulletins and stuff like that, or look up previous cases, you would think somewhere in there it would say something, make sure that you use adhesion promoter, but no, it does not. Because I actually double checked that today when I was at the shop. It does not say that. Make sure you use adhesion promoter. It's one of those situations of it happened, it shouldn't have happened, it happened, but you know what? And now everybody learned a lesson from that. And I guarantee you, next time that a plastic component has to get replaced, going to reach whoever's doing it, especially at our shop, is going to think about it and then double check to see what it says. Okay? And I know other guys out there who have shops who are watching this, or mechanics that are watching this that work in the shop, you're probably going to think about that next time. Because like I said, I guarantee you, nobody looks at the directions. Now, let me explain a couple things too. Okay, when I was at the dealership, like the last year I was there, I must have replaced 20 transmissions, 62 TEs in ProMaster vans. Okay, I must have put 20 of those things in 1 year. One of the last ones that I had done got bounced back. Now, what does that actually mean? They were warranty claims. Okay, all of these vehicles are under warranty. When it got bounced back, that means that Chrysler looked at the ticket, or Stellantis, or whoever it was at the time, FCA, I think is what it was at the time. They looked at the warranty ticket and they decided to bounce it back, meaning they're not going to pay it. But why? Why are they not going to pay it? Because in the instructions, the directions, the 4 pages of directions or whatever on how to replace a transmission, they had revised it. And the new revision was you had to replace the transmission mount. Why? I don't even know why. It just tells you a new mount must be used. The old mount fits just fine. But why would I read the directions to see that? And they're sitting there telling me you have to read the directions every time. Baloney. Baloney. I should not have to read the directions every time. So yeah, they bounced that back. They wanted the dealership to pay for it. And my whole thing was, you know what? In a situation like that, where you decide that an extra part needs to be replaced for whatever reason, then you, the manufacturer, should go to the parts department and have something in their notes saying, hey, if you're selling a transmission for this particular vehicle, make sure it has the updated mount or it's getting the replacement mount. But they didn't at the time. Anyway, we had fought that. We argued that one, and they accepted it, and they actually did that. So they paid for the repair, but then they updated it and put it through the parts department as their responsibility to make it known to, hey, you need to replace this mount. Back when the Plymouth Prowler, I think it was, came out, I'm not sure about the vehicle, but I do remember this in particular. They had a situation with wheel torque. It could have been a Viper. It could have even been like a PT Cruiser. I just don't remember the car, but I remember hearing about it. And what they did was, originally, the wheel torque spec was 80 foot-pounds or whatever. Then they changed it. They revised it. And, of course, who would think to look up the directions on how to rotate tires? Really, who would think about that? And what they revised it to was to use a 45 foot-pound torque stick on your impact gun, set the wheels to 45, okay? Then, after that, put it down on the ground and torque the wheels to, I say 45 or 65, whatever it was. It was supposed to be 45. So then you put it to 65 with a hand torque wrench when it's on the ground. Then road test it. When you road test it, you had to go a certain amount of miles, come back, and then re-torque the wheels to whatever the foot-pound was. So now, a tire rotation that takes 3/10, now 3/10, that's 18 minutes, okay? 3/10. Now, that tire rotation is going to take you a half hour, 45 minutes easy to do the tire rotation. Who wants to do all of that? Seriously, who wants to do all of that? GM even had a situation that I remember, and I don't recall the vehicle again, and it might have been the first generation LS engines, the 5.3 and 6 liters. It might have been those when they first came out. And the spec for cylinder head torque was something like 85 foot-pounds, or whatever it was. They wanted you to torque it to that, and that was it. Okay. It could have been 110, I don't recall. But then they revised it because head gaskets were still going out on them. And what they revised it to was, hey, they were using torque to yield bolts. Torque to yield means you torque it to whatever the set spec is. Let's say it's 45, 55, 65, whatever it is. You set it to that spec. Then it tells you to go another 50 degrees, 120 degrees, 180 degrees, or 90 degrees, whatever it is. It tells you to do that on all of them, and then it tells you to do another 90 degrees on all of them, whatever it is. But they had changed the way to do it, and they never actually said anything, but they put it in the directions on how to torque the cylinder head. It was like an update to the service manuals. And we would get these update booklets, and basically you had to put it with the service manuals. But in all seriousness, why would you even think to recheck that if you've already done 100 of these darn things? Why? It makes no sense. It's like anything else. Valve cover gaskets. How hard is it to do a valve cover gasket? In certain cars, it's real difficult, but just in general, you're going to unbolt it, you're going to take it apart, you're going to put it back together, you're going to put it on. If there's a seam, you know you're going to put a little bit of sealer. Why would you think to look at directions? You don't. You just don't. That's just how it is. But if they change something, like they're very specific about a certain torque, okay, for whatever reason, and I've seen that before, where they decide that something has to be specifically torqued, like one bolt. The new 5.3s and 6.2s, one head bolt is a different torque. And it's on the driver's side. I don't know if they have it on the passenger side also, but it's like the driver's side front one by the rocker arm is a different torque than all the other bolts. Okay? I've only done a driver's side head, so I wouldn't know if it's also on a passenger side head. But yeah, one head bolt is a different torque spec. So basically what I want to get at is blaming the shop, blaming the technician. Okay, yes, it is their fault in the end. However, looking at it from an owner's or a manager's perspective, no, I can't blame, sorry if I tapped the microphone. I can't blame the tech. I just can't, because it's easily overlooked and I can understand it. Because being a tech myself, I understand what goes on. So I know a lot of you have commented about it and made points about it, and your points are valid and I get it, but I hope you see it from my perspective on that. So anyway, that's about it. I just wanted to just cover that. It's really not a big deal. But yeah, so the customer is happy. The customer is happy with everything we're doing. The car is still at the shop because the customer's been on vacation. The car is still at the shop. I'm actually going to recheck it tomorrow. Maybe I'll make a video of rechecking it tomorrow just to verify. Rob has driven the car home several times, and he says that he has checked underneath and hasn't seen anything leaking, but it's never gone back on a lift. So maybe tomorrow I will throw it on a lift and just see, and maybe I'll fill you in on that one. So, because I think the customer's picking it up next week when I'm running the shop. So, but anyway, so I'll be at the shop tomorrow, which is Friday, all next week, and then that following Monday and half of Tuesday, because I want to fill Rob in when he gets back from his vacation. So anyway, that's it. I wanted to share that with you. I hope you're getting something out of my videos. If you are, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day and keep wrenching.